Welcome to today's Meet the Candidates for the Board of Education. We'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. I'm Bernie Vega, the president of the Monroe-Woodbury PTA Council. The PTA is a nonpartisan organization whose mission statement is to advocate for, cultivate, and empower individual units to improve the education, health, and well-being of children and families. The PTA's mission is to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children. This forum is part of our ongoing voter education efforts to help voters make informed decisions at the upcoming elections. We hope that over the course of this program, you will learn more about the candidates and what they hope to do for Monroe-Woodbury Board of Education. Welcome to the Meet the Candidates Board of Education. We're delighted to have you join us tonight as we embark on a journey to learn more about the dedicated individuals vying for positions on our Board of Education. This forum serves as a vital platform for our community to engage directly with the candidates, gain insights into their visions, and understand how they plan to shape the future of our educational system here. As we navigate through tonight's discussions, let's keep in mind the importance of this decision-making process. The individuals you'll meet tonight are not just names on a ballot. They are community members, advocates, and leaders who are committed to enhancing the quality of education of our children and empowering our schools to thrive. Together, let's embrace this opportunity to shape the future of education in our district. Thank you for your participation, and let's make tonight's forum a productive and enlightening experience for all. We have 5 candidates running for the Board of Ed positions. However, there are 3 seats available. The candidates are as follows: Caitlin Simmons, Dawn Tauber, incumbent; Candace DeLeo Novak, Jamel Evans, incumbent; Anthony Anderson, incumbent. Not present today, Dawn Tauber. Instructions for the candidates. You will have 2 minutes for an opening statement, 2 minutes for a closing statement, and 1 minute to answer each question. There will be no rebuttal after each question, and every candidate has an opportunity to answer every question in a rotating order. Opening and closing statements will be done based on ballot order, and the timekeeper is Ashley Torres, North Main PTA president, sitting to the far right. Next to me on my left is Erica Culver, president of the Smith Clove PTA, and we will take turns asking questions submitted by our community members. When there is half a minute left on your speaking time, the timekeeper will hold up a yellow card indicating that you have 30 seconds to finish your answer. Please wrap up your statement when you see the red card. If you continue to speak after the stop card is held up, I will say thank you and move on to the next speaker. The rules are as follows. Personal references about other candidates are out of order. Please note the cameras are at the back of the room, and this forum is being broadcasted live and will be rebroadcasted several times. We want to remind you that it is not a debate, and the answer should be just addressed to instructions to the audience. Please turn off your cell phones and beeping watches now. We request that you treat all candidates fairly. Please remain quiet throughout the forum. No clapping, no cheering, or calling out loud, with the exception that after their closing statements. You may clap for all candidates if you wish at the end. No campaign literature or signs are allowed inside this room. No questions will be taken from the audience. Starting the candidates forum, we will start with the candidate for the following office with Caitlin. Caitlin, what special knowledge, focus, initiative would you bring to the Board of Education if elected?
As an attorney, I think I am very analytical, very pragmatic. I also, in my professional career, I work for the City of New York in the Inspector General's office. So having to have difficult conversations, having to be at an impasse, and having to find ways to solve problems where you can meet in the middle, where there are times that you have to think about how to get to the best solution. I think that I have a true, tried and true, tested ability to be able to do that. I think also making sure that we always think about the end goal. I think sometimes in negotiations or disagreements, or when you're trying to get decisions made, you can get lost in trying to get there. And I think always keeping the focus there, always trying to make sure that the focus is on the children, what's best for the district. I think I have the ability to bring that to the board. In addition to, in terms of the focus should always be on the children. I think as a parent, that is my primary focus. It is always on my children. And I feel like being a part of the board, you can never lose focus about all of the decisions that you make, all of the decisions and the policies that you are part of putting into place ultimately affect the children. And I think that being that pragmatic voice, being that calm person who always can say, let's just refocus, I think those are the types of things that are needed, particularly when you have to make tough decisions. And then just also making sure that you always keep in focus kind of the end goal.
And if you have any other opening statements, you can as well.
My husband and I have lived in Monroe for 14 years. I have twin daughters who, they made me say twin junior Olympic track stars, who attend North Main and will be coming to the middle school in the fall. Thank you.
Thank you. You can start with your opening statement, and then what special knowledge focus initiative would you bring to the Board of Education if elected?
Thank you. My name is Candace. I'm a candidate for Board of Ed. It's nice to meet all of you. I live in Monroe with my husband Jonathan and our two sons, Jack and Dashel. Jack's a student here at the middle school. Jack's a North Mainer in 4th grade. We've had an awesome experience in the district so far, so really loving it. With regards to what special focus I think I could bring to the board, my education is in mathematics, chemistry, and chemical engineering. I hold a PhD in chemical engineering and have worked in research and development for the last 14 years. So I'm very process-driven, very kind of analytical, tactical, step-by-step kind of mindset. I've also worked within my career in highly constrained systems. So I work in product development, and in bringing a product to the market, there's never enough time, there's never enough money, there's never enough resources. So finding an optimal way to deliver within those constraints is something that I've gotten very good at over the years, and I think that those skills can really apply to some of the problems and challenges faced by the board, especially budgetary challenges. I also bring one of my passions in my work is to bring diverse products to market within consumer goods. And to do that, you need diverse input. So you can't bring diversity without inclusion. And so that's something that I've also brought into my team, my product development, and not just from a racial point of view or from a gender point of view, but really from a kind of skill set point of view too. So the best experiences I've had in my career were when we had scientists, engineers, and creatives all together solving a problem. So that multidisciplinary approach is really something I'm familiar with and I think could apply really well to my role on the board. Thank you.
Jamel?
All right. Jamel Evans, resident of the Monroe area for 32 years now. This school is now the middle school, but I was the last year to graduate here when it was the high school, so I'm old. To get a little bit of background on myself, I'm a dad first. That's what I do. That's my main goal. That's my main job. That's my end product, is to be the best dad that I can be. So me being on the board is a step in that direction. It's me giving back to my community that has pretty much laid the foundation for who I am today. It's allowed me to be the man, the father, the husband, the person that I am. So I had to find ways that I felt comfortable and able to give back to the community, and this is it for me. So this is my second term. I've been on the board now for 3 years, the last 2 acting as the vice president as well. And I will answer the question. So I guess the special knowledge I have is my profession is similar to them. We bring our professions with us to some level. My profession is a user experience director. So what we do for the most part is we assess, we act, and we build. We take in information, all different kinds, qualitative and quantitative information, and really think about what makes the most sense to make an efficient product going forward. And even though I don't see our students in such a dry way, I do think that those kind of skills can be applied when specifically even dealing with each other. I think there's a lot of opportunities, there's a lot of chances and opportunities for boards to go in the wrong direction. And in my mind, you want to be able to connect with people that don't have a specific view that you have, but you still have to respect theirs, just like you want them to respect yours. So in my mind, it's something that I feel like I do well. I'm not going to refer to board members, but I hope that they respect me and my approach to things, because I do think that that communication between us is very important, and you want to have a non-biased point of view when you approach situations. So you're getting ready with the red paper. I was like, wrap it up.
Anthony?
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Anthony, and Jamel, you are very well respected on the board and in the community. I've been a resident of the community for 24 years now. This is my third term on the board, so I've been on the board for 9 years now. I'm a dad. I've got 2 kids. One of them went through the Monroe-Woodbury School District, and I have another child in the 5th grade currently. My personal job, the one that actually takes up some of my time besides the board, is I work for an insurance carrier, and I do insurance claims work specifically for design, construction projects. That gives me a lot of experience dealing with attorneys, dealing with contracts, dealing with design professionals, and I've been able to transfer a lot of that knowledge to some of the issues we've gotten involved in the board, some of the capital projects that we've had to repair the fields, repair the buildings, things like that. I've gotten very involved in some of the contract work there, very involved in some of the negotiations with the contractors and some of the design professionals that we've used. I've been a leader in my company for over 20 years, and I could bring some of that experience to the board as well, just dealing with people, getting placeholder people, stakeholders, various stakeholders involved in whatever issue we're dealing with. And, I think a lot of those resources that I have, I can bring to the board and have brought to the board for the last few years, and I'd appreciate staying on the board for another term.
Thank you.
Candace, the district mission statement is, Monroe-Woodbury Central School District is committed to academic achievement and success for all students in a safe environment. In partnership with families and our community, the district's mission is to promote confidence, inspire passion for learning, and to prepare students to become responsible global citizens. What do you see as the major issues facing the school?
So right now, I think the important kind of keywords in that we should focus on is all students and safe. So right now, I see the biggest issue and the biggest thing I hear from my peers in the community is making sure that our schools are safe. And safety has a lot of facets, right? So it's school safety, that there's no intruder, but it's also kind of bullying, it's peer-to-peer interaction, student-to-student interaction. So there's so many elements that kind of come along with that. And then related to that is the communication. So it's student safety, making sure that students, their education and safety comes first, and then making sure that there's a nice communication stream coming out to the community from the school district at all times with regards to those elements. So again, making sure that all students have that safe environment to flourish, thrive, and get a great education.
So from what I've seen over the last few years, being on the board, we get that view from what's happening behind the scenes a little bit more, or a lot more. And I would say the number one thing that I see as a major issue, to be completely honest, is accountability. I think a lot of times kids aren't being held accountable for their actions. So it does sometimes, unfortunately, lead to safety issues. There are certain students that need certain levels of discipline. We can't overlook that just because we don't want to have it be seen as, oh, they're being too harsh on the children. So in my mind, I see it as, and I'm sorry, it shouldn't just be for the students as well, for the teachers and administration too. A lot of decisions are being made, and we have to hold students, teachers, and administration accountable, parents as well. Trying to beat that red card.
Anthony?
Like Jamel said, we see some things in the board, so we've got a little bit more access to some of the information. Safety certainly is one of the things that is one of the issues for the kids, always is, and always something we look out for. Accountability, certainly, because of the sort of the change in the climate that the kids exhibit nowadays. But the two things that I would say are the major issues going to be affecting our district are the dramatic increase of English as a second language children and the dramatic increase of economically disadvantaged children in our district. And we have to do whatever we have to do as a board to make sure that those kids aren't left behind, that we devote the resources and the money to make sure that they are trained, that they learn how to speak, how to read, and how to have all the opportunities that everyone else in the district has.
I definitely agree with my fellow candidates in terms of safety and accountability being major issues. I also believe, just to have, just as an additive, that making sure that our children are prepared for the world that they're going to be exposed to. You know, the world right now is very different than the one that we all grew up in. Technology is playing a major role in a lot of what we are doing. Manual processes are being phased out. So making sure that we're adaptive to that and making sure that we're preparing our students for the world that they're going to see, whether it is in an educational forum, a technology forum, making sure that they have a safe environment to thrive. I think those are issues that we have to make sure that we tackle so that they're prepared for the world that they are going to hopefully be successful in, and we're going to prepare them to do that.
Thank you. As a board member, do you feel there is an advantage or disadvantage to also being a current parent of the Monroe-Woodbury Central School District student? That is for Jamel.
100% advantage. You're vested. You're 100% vested in what's going on in the schools. Not even just what's in the current school. My children go to Pine Tree, 4th and 2nd grade. But because they're in Pine Tree, I have to now worry about what's going to happen when they're in middle school and high school. So even though I don't have children there, I'm still invested in what's happening at those levels that I could be aware of, that we should start working on now so that we can improve it selfishly before my kids get to that level. I'll be honest. So in my mind, it's only helped me. And I understand some people that are like, when I get to a certain point and their kids are graduating, they're like, I don't need to be on the board anymore. And I get that attitude. I might feel that same way. But as of now, I'm very heavily involved in just what's happening from a day-to-day basis.
Anthony?
Yeah, I agree totally. I do think it is important that you have kids in the district. As Jamel said, you have a vested interest in it. You kind of have an insider too to sort of give you the real lowdown as to what's going on sometimes in the schools that you may not hear about. You get it from a different perspective, right? From a student's perspective. So you know what you hear maybe in the board meetings and what you hear in some other meetings may not be exactly lining up with what you're hearing your kids telling you. And it gives you sort of a subject area to explore a little further. As Jamel said, as your kids move up through the schools, you have a vested interest in making sure each of those schools are providing the right resources for the children. And, it just gives you, more of an interest in those areas to be focused on.
Thank you. Caitlin?
I 100% agree that it is an advantage. I hold a very prestigious professional career, but as I said in my opening statement, my most important job is being a parent first. And I think you do have a vested interest, and you want to see the best product. You want to make sure your children have all of the amazing resources, and you want to make sure that what they're being taught and they have the best technology and resources available to them. And you also want to make sure, as a parent, you have that compassion for parents who may have children with special needs or other educational developments that they may need, because I think those give you kind of the insight and the compassion to make sure that it's just not numbers on a spreadsheet and you're not making decisions that are broad brushed, but you're making decisions really putting the whole child and the very different facets of all children into decisions and the policies that you're a part of making.
Candace?
I agree with everyone. It's an absolute advantage. And just to give kind of an analogy, you see when there's a medical advancement or a new innovation, oftentimes that stems from a personal experience or a vested interest in it. So sometimes the best doctors will go into cancer research because a family member had a terrible cancer experience. So having that vested interest brings a passion and a focus that I think is only an advantage to this this area. Being part of that community, there's also the immersion factor, right? So you're with your kids every day, you're hearing what they're saying, you're seeing what their friends are, you're hearing what their friends are doing. So that immersion is also extremely helpful to really keep that targeted focus on the role.
Anthony, in regards to the new superintendent, what qualities, characteristics, and background would you be most looking for if you were the decision maker?
Well, I think, there's certain table stakes we're looking at, right? I mean, they have to have the right qualifications in education. I'd like to see if they were a doctor and had a doctorate in the education field. I'd like to see that they are experienced as either a superintendent or an assistant superintendent for a good school district, maybe one that has similar characteristics as of ours, a few thousand kids, 5,000 or more. Mostly I want them to also be a good person and someone that has experience in dealing with the issues that I talked about before that we'll be seeing a little more in our district about students with ESL and economically disadvantaged students. If they've had that experience in their district, they've written about it in some dissertations, those are the kind of things that I'm looking for in someone.
I would say that, yes, there are baseline professional characteristics that I would look for, of course, a background in education. But I think in terms of outside of the baseline checklist factors that you would look for in a superintendent in terms of professional qualifications, I would also want to look for someone who had an adaptable personality. I think when dealing with, changing times in children, you can't look at things as black and white, and it can't be as rigid. Our community is changing. It's been changing and developing and evolving, and you want to have a person in charge of your school district who can be adaptable and evolve with the times to make sure that our curriculum, our schools, the education and the resources also match the needs at the time. So I think that would be, aside from professional characteristics and background, it would also be adaptability as a characteristic trait.
Candace?
Agree, we need the next superintendent to have strong credentials and I'd love to see somebody come in with a doctorate, perhaps with some publications in the field of education. I would love to see the candidate have a balance of teaching experience as well as some central office experience. I would love to see that balance. And I would also love to see someone who brings a high energy. I don't know how Ms. Rodriguez does it all the time, but you need to have that high energy personality and that commitment to the job. So I think that in addition to everything that the other candidates have said, which I fully agree, you need that energy focus too.
Jamel?
So I would say we need someone that has proven leadership and great communication skills. I do see from situations in the past where even though something may have been done well, how it gets communicated out can be an issue. We have a community that's very strong-minded, and they have no problem voicing concerns. So we need someone that can speak to that and not cause conflict, but actually build bridges through that conversation. That's what I'll be looking for. But and also on the leadership side, I think it's important because this person's not going to be in every school day to day. We don't want them there. We need them to kind of lead from afar in certain situations. So they need to have the respect of their cabinet through their great leadership. If we have the cabinet continue to be as great as they are, then you have great teachers and staff. And if they are, then obviously it's going to go down to the children. That's what we're all here for.
Caitlin, one of the tasks you would have as a board member is to ensure that the district is putting together a fair and responsible budget. Please share how you will go about soliciting input from all stakeholders, community members, administrators, and classroom teachers to ensure that money is being allocated to meet the needs of our students.
Certainly. So in my professional career, I'm the Deputy Commissioner of Operations for the Department of Investigations. One of the units that I oversee is budget. In my prior job, I was the Chief of Staff for the Administration for Children's Services. Again, one of the jobs in my portfolio was overseeing budget. I've overseen budgets as high as $3 billion, and I think when you are soliciting input, you need forums like this, where the community can have a way to voice kind of what their concerns are, things that they would like to see. The teachers should be able to do the same in terms of what affects them and their ability to do their jobs, and administrators the like. So I think creating forums and avenues for that input to be easily given and garnered, and then taking all of that collectively and being able to put it into the decisions that you make. So I would say creating a forum for receiving that information that makes it easy for people to give it.
Candace?
I agree, a forum is really the best place, but there's a lot of thought that needs to go into that forum, right? Because we live in a time of great technology, and as part of my prep for running for the board, I went back and watched some of the board meetings on YouTube. They have 20 views, so there's lots of ways to kind of give feedback and get feedback and solicit that feedback, but sometimes the things have to mesh together. So that's where I think creating the forum and then communicating or creating that open communication and that dialogue is really important to make sure that it's effective. It's reaching the people who want to say something, giving them an area to be heard, and then making sure that there's a clear understanding of all feedback being kind of synthesized together, right? So it's not like one person can say they want something and it's going to get done. So making sure that that communication is really about receiving and synthesizing everything together and then making the best decision for the district.
That's Jamal.
Outside of my own family income and household, I do not have a budgetary background. So what I've learned, especially for my first year, because they put me on the audit committee, was to really become more versed in what our finance person does, Patrick. And he's incredible at what he does, and I respect him because the amount of numbers that him and his people deal with are incredible. But what I did there was I had to kind of sit back, I'll be honest, and really take it all in and really understand what was being done from an audit perspective. That gave me a better idea of where our money is really being spent. So in my mind, I don't have a clear answer because other than forums, which is a great answer, I haven't seen it work yet over the last 3 years. I feel like it's something that not a lot of people are versed in the public, so they do depend a lot on the professionals. So even though we can put a forum out there, I don't think a lot of people would unfortunately come.
Anthony?
I kind of agree that, forums and opportunities for various stakeholders to, state their opinions is the most important thing. I think we do that. We do that in our board meetings. We do that in more informal meetings. We also have the whole hierarchy of the principals and the assistant superintendents that are constantly taking the temperature and getting the school climate, and through the informal ways and the back channels we do hear from school teachers and other members of the school. Plus we have various surveys that we send out to the community, and we try to take all of that together. And as Jamel said, Patrick is a tremendous financial person, and he really does spearhead the effort towards balancing the budget. But that's where the board comes in and tries to take all that information along with the administration and filter it through the lens of putting a budget together that meets all the needs.
Candace, what ideas do you have for building community, cohesion, intentional inclusion, not just physical integration, for our students that are classified with social deficits and special needs in the elementary and secondary schools?
So there's a lot of opportunity, and we've seen some really great practices in some of our elementary schools that I think we can apply and mimic. There's different ways that you can bring diversity nights. So North Main, for example, has a food night where everybody could kind of bring and show their cultures. There's different ways to do that to kind of bring all different communities together. So if there's a special needs, for example, community, maybe there's a neurodivergent or some kind of area where you can bring in different focuses to kind of do that cross-education and break down some barriers. So aside from kind of children's events or student events, there's also broader community events, because it's not just the students that maybe need to have this kind of cohesion. It's really about the parents and the entire community. So I think that there's ways to kind of expand on that and apply things to just educate and share your personal experiences with your neighbors and with the other families that your children go to school with.
Mel?
Last thing that Candace mentioned, regarding sharing is what I would actually go towards, because something that my daughter's teacher did was, there's a special needs class that's close by to their class, and what she'll do sometimes is get their class and her class together to do certain events or certain activities. And I think that level of exposure, especially at the elementary levels, is huge. It helps you to build your empathetic heart to a point where you can see them as not special needs. They're just like you. They're kids. They want to have fun. They want to learn. They want to be around other people, and they want to feel like they're a part of things. So I love that kind of stuff. Also, I would say we have our Special Olympics individuals that do great work, and they put in a lot of time and effort into that, and I don't personally feel like it's promoted as much as it should be. I know we have it every year, but I feel like we could do a lot more with that when it comes to getting the community and the other students involved.
Anthony?
Yeah, I agree. I think we do a pretty good job in the district already. The Special Olympics and the whole special education part of our curriculum is really well run, and we try to put the word out in the community so we get people to attend those events. We do have a lot of things regarding diversity in the schools. Those nights that we have where we have people come and everybody brings something that they've cooked that's unique to their culture or heritage. So I think we already do a pretty good job of it, but there's always room for improvement. And I know I've been to a lot of the schools where they have things that try to reach out for the economically disadvantaged kids, where they'll have clothing drive.
So it focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think one of the things, especially with young people, they don't want to be labeled as different. They don't want a spotlight on them, I'm special needs. I think being able to inform our children, because they are much smarter than we give them credit for, we tend to want to shield them from a lot of things, but letting them know, what someone who may have special needs, what their characteristics are or what their triggers are, and just letting them be kids and let them interact with each other. And if there is a need for an information session in the community, I think, yes, do that. But I think for the most part, let children interact naturally. Don't put the spotlight on, oh, this person is different, because kids are kids at the end of the day. And I think sometimes when you are a special needs child, you don't want that spotlight to say, hey, I'm different, and you treat them differently. They want to be treated like all of the other kids. And a lot of the times kids don't see the special needs that we see. So I think making sure that they're informed so that they can be empathetic, but also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Some members of our community feel there is a huge disconnect between what is happening in schools and the Board of Education. Some feel the only information provided to the Board of Education seems to come through administrators only. Some feel the information is funneled in a way that the teachers' voices are seldom heard. What plans, if any, do you have to improve communication? And that is for Jamel.
Okay. So it might sound like a very simple answer, but email. And what I mean by that is, even though people may feel like we're only hearing it through a certain lens, maybe from the administration or the superintendent, it's not true. We get emails frequently from parents that have concerns, and I think that it's important for people to know that our emails are available for those reasons. Sometimes they don't feel like they're being heard at the class level, school level, administration of the school level. So reach out if you feel like you need to. It's not something I would say to take advantage of or anything, but it's a certain channel that you should be going up, but we want to make sure you're being heard. So if you don't feel like you're being heard, please reach out. And that goes for the teachers as well. It doesn't happen as much with teachers, I think, because they have somewhat of a relationship with their internal staff. But I would say for the focus on parents and community members, our emails are public for that reason. We always will get your email to the right person. Your emails do not sit in our inbox, rusting. We'll get you to who needs to see it.
Thank you. The same question. Do you want me to repeat it, or you're good?
No, I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's exactly right. We do publish our emails, and we do try to answer every email that any community member, specifically teachers or non-teachers or members of the union, they have an issue. We're always available to them. I hear more things sometimes outside of the board meetings, at the vegetable stand and Stop and Shop than I do inside. So, we're not that big of a community. People will come up to you and just start talking, and I've had many discussions with teachers, many discussions with union members, and then, it's good to hear that, because it's an informal discussion, and they will let you know certain things that they maybe don't feel so comfortable to talk about in a more formal setting, but I do think we do try to make ourselves be public and let it be known that if you do feel this way, then reach out to me, reach out to Jamel, reach out to anyone that is on the school board, and that information is readily available.
Thank you. Caitlin?
I think one of the reasons that forums like this and elections like this are important is that you remind members of the community that the people who sit on this board are also members of the community. So a lot of the concerns that they have, we may also have. And I think as a professional that works within the school system, I think, yes, we have to ensure that the people who are responsible for teaching and safeguarding our young children every day, they have a means that they feel that they are able to be heard, they're able to be frank about challenges and issues, and that there is a viable means to hear that. I think making yourself available and making yourself approachable, I think makes it easier for people to want to be candid with you. So I think have a forum that, whether it's email or some in-person forum, or just being approachable in ShopRite at the food stand, so that people will be more comfortable letting all of the things that they're unhappy with or happy with be heard.
Thank you. Candace?
It sounds like there might be a little bit of depth to this question, so maybe somebody is coming from a place where they haven't felt heard. So aside from email approachability, there's kind of two things that I would try to do as a board member if I'm elected. So one is making sure that you have that confidence, right? Because it sounds like there might be some apprehension for a teacher to express themselves candidly. And so making sure that you are able to maybe synthesize or keep that confidential or report that anonymously. So building that trust with the community is first and foremost the way to kind of open up the discussion and make sure that any person feels comfortable emailing or approaching you. And then the second is the feedback loop, because I think that might be what is missing for this exact person is maybe they've said something and they haven't felt like it was heard. And so making sure that if there is something that comes up, that there's some kind of feedback, whether it's even that you were still under reviewing this is still under review, we're still looking into this, just having that feedback loop to make sure that it wasn't just submitted or said, it was actually heard.
Thank you.
Anthony. Students and teachers are expected to perform in classrooms with temperatures approaching 100 degrees in early fall and late spring, and custodians perform their heaviest lift in the summer, preparing our schools for the upcoming year. We as a district have made health and safety a priority, yet overlook the health and safety related issues associated with long-term exposure to excessive temperatures, including but not limited to heat exhaustion and heat stroke. As we experience higher and higher temperatures in this area, how would you propose to bring our older buildings into the 21st century in terms of climate control?
Yeah, it's certainly an issue that we've thought about as a board, and I was the head of the capital project improvements for the last couple of years, and we actually had air conditioning in the proposed project last year, but unfortunately it got voted down by the community. Unfortunately, in public schools, budgetary concerns are an issue, and there's only so much money you have to go around to fix a lot of the problems. We do recognize that this is an issue, and we have tried to address it by putting in fans, by putting in some air conditioning where we can in some of the schools, but the overall project to air condition every school is just something that we need to get community buy-in for, and they've, at the present time, recognized that some other things like security and school safety take precedence, as well as some of the infrastructure of the schools, like the boilers and the roofs. And it just comes down to a money thing, unfortunately, but we're not purposely avoiding it. Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the things that I've learned in my preparation for running for the board is that there's a minimum temperature limit, there's not a maximum temperature limit. And I know that there is support for legislation to change that, and I think that's one aspect. I think, too, infrastructure improvements in terms of if a child is in an environment that's too hot and they can't learn effectively, then that's an issue, because I think one of the most important parts about being in school is being in a comfortable enough environment where the heat isn't affecting your ability to concentrate. So I think looking at infrastructure improvements, trying to find the funding where you can to make sure that all of the classrooms and all of the school buildings can be as comfortable as they are. Yes, I know some other things may take precedent, but I think if it affects the student's ability to learn, then it should be looked at as one of those priorities as well.
I think I had the same aha moment at the special budget meeting when one of the teachers, Daryl McElroy, was speaking about that, and that kind of really struck me, that there's no maximum temperature. So these students, the teachers, the staff, the custodial staff, they're all working in what no other profession would probably allow, that is indoors. So I do think it's a really important thing for the school board to continue fighting for, and I think New York State legislature should be changed too in this area to establish a maximum temperature. I'm not sure how effective any Board of Ed would be in doing that, but it's something that we can all look into and try. It is something I'm really passionate about, supporting the board and supporting the budgetary maneuvers and optimization to help enable.
So I know Anthony touched on it a little bit, but the capital improvement project, once again, it was in there. But that's where I think next superintendent, that communication is going to be key because of things like this, that we didn't get approved because I don't think that there was enough communication regarding how it affects our children and the staff in the actual schools. And one thing that he didn't mention is that he's the chair of our visitation committee. I'm on this with him. We go into the buildings. We've been in the classrooms, actually towards the end of the day, so it's not even at the hottest point. So you walk to those classrooms and you feel it as soon as you walk in. You don't want your kids in there. You wouldn't want your kids in there all day. And I wish that we would have passed the earlier capital improvement. I understand why it didn't for multiple reasons, but I do, like others are saying, we have to keep fighting for this because they shouldn't be in that condition. They're small children and even the adults. It's not fair to them, and it's not a good learning opportunity for them. It's definitely a distraction.
Caitlin, what is your policy as it pertains to cell phones in schools? Some feel that the access to data, internet, while in school has dramatically decreased learning across the country. We have given kids a built-in distraction that they are incapable of ignoring. Most adults cannot even control themselves. There are people right now looking at their phones as this is being read to the candidates. Therefore, many school districts around the nation are adopting lockup policies for phones. Students turn in their phones in locked cases at the beginning of the day/homeroom. What is your position on this policy?
I think that I agree that cell phones can be a distraction, particularly in the world of social media. Young people are always attached to their phones. They always want to be in constant contact. So I think, yes, as a parent, I understand the need for a child to have a cell phone so that you can be in contact with them during their points of travel and other after-school activities. But I think during the school day, when they're in a safe place where you can contact them and know where they are, that, yes, their phones can be locked in an area that it doesn't become a distraction to their learning, but when they're leaving or at after-school activities, you as a parent can still get in contact with them. So I would be in support of them being able to bring it, but have it in a safe lock area during the school day so it's not a distraction to their learning.
Candace?
On this, my policy is definitely to support lockup phones during the day. The research is overwhelmingly in support of less screen time for adolescents, teens, tweens, children. It's really damaging on a number of levels to their social and academic development. So I really feel that they should be locked up during the school day. I'm also conscious that in today's day and age, there might be worry for parents to not be able to reach their child during the day should an emergency happen. But I do think that the risks outweigh the benefits to having those phones in the hands of students during the school day.
Thank you.
I'm also all for the lockup of phones at the beginning of the day. And I know there's going to be situations where that doesn't seem like the right move. And I think in those situations, we have to take them seriously and look into them. I think there's situations where mental health can be a concern for many students. They need to feel like they're connected to a phone in case they have to call out for help. Even in those situations, though, I think that maybe that phone should be with a guidance counselor or someone that they can go to that has more, that has some level of a control over when they're using it and if what the issue is of why they use it. So I would definitely opt more for a locked up
you.
type approach.
Anthony?
I 100% agree. I think Candace said that the data just overwhelmingly supports that the kids, since the advent of the smartphone in 2010, 2011, we've just got a multitude of problems, even more serious than just distraction. But as far as distractions in the school, I would certainly favor locking them up. You know, we probably can do some sort of studies and analysis as to what exactly the parameters would be about that, and I do understand the need about potential emergencies. But as was stated, we know the kids are in school, so you can contact the school, and then the school would be able to get the child if there was an emergency. So I think that, you know, concern would be alleviated.
Candace, to what degree will you or do you trust educators as professionals in their fields with multiple advanced degrees to practice academic freedom, meaning discussion of challenging, relevant issues, as well as including and providing relevant texts and resources in our classrooms and in our school community, while giving students the academic language and tools to engage in civil discourse and respectful dialogue?
So I think this is about professional empowerment for teachers, right? So you're hired to do a job, you have the credentials to do the job, you have the experience to do the job. If you're coming into the classroom and you have to teach a certain curriculum to your students, the path to do that should be in your hands, right? So there's going to be some boundaries to this. You can't come in and deliver a math course and then maybe deviate into, you know, some social issues, right? You have to stay on topic and stay on course. But for somebody who's teaching civics, social studies, any of these courses where these types of skills are really essential to developing and being educated to be a citizen of the world, I think it's really important to empower our teachers to use their experience and expertise to choose the path on which they deliver what they're supposed to deliver.
Okay. So I'm assuming that this is in relation to middle school and high school, assuming. The reason why is I think we have to make sure that it's age appropriate for whatever this potential discourse or potential conversation that may be off topic is going to be. In my mind, this also leads back to what I said earlier regarding one of the main issues is accountability. If a teacher is going off course a little bit for the benefit of the children and their learning opportunity, I think they have to know that they're going to be held accountable for anything that happens from that. If it's not approved by the school, then it could go left, it could go right. We don't know until you know, a parent writes one of us and lets us know what happened in the class. So I think they just have to be aware that that's a possible outcome. I do think that there's a lot of great conversations that can happen from. I had a lot of them. My teacher was Mrs. Blatt, and we had lots of conversations back then regarding different things that were happening in the late 90s. So long story short, I think that it's a necessity, but we have to be sure what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I mostly trust the educators. We have great teachers here, and I would say 99% of the time they teach the courses the way they should be taught, that the students are engaged and they're allowed to have discussions about relevant topics and some serious topics. I mean, we live in a very complicated world now, and there's a lot of disagreement about certain things. As Jamel stated, you know, sometimes we do hear about situations where a particular student or their parent is a little upset as to how the course was taught, and we do have to have boundaries, and the teachers know that. Generally speaking, they stay within their lanes, and if they don't, if they veer off course a little left or a little right, usually that comes to our attention, and we bring that to the attention of the principals and or the administration, and that's taken care of.
I believe as professionals and subject matter experts who are vetted and hired to do a job, that there should be some level of freedom, as long as it's age appropriate, subject appropriate. Of course, using the example that Candace did, if you're in a math course, you're not going to talk about social issues. But if it's appropriate, age appropriate, subject appropriate, I think it's helpful because our children, again, we tend to shelter them as parents, but I think they're aware of a lot of the social issues. They have opinions about them, and providing a forum where they can get informed, where they're not relying on the internet for misinformation, they can get correct information and engage in, dialogue about things they agree and disagree with, and have a forum to do that. I think it's really helpful so they could be educated about those subjects appropriately.
Jamel, in what ways would you work to support our changing student demographics, specifically helping students who are new to the district feel welcome and reduce the culture of bullying and exclusion online students, parents, and staff that some established residents seem to be comfortable with?
So there's a lot going on in that question, so I'll break it down a little bit. So when it comes to the bullying, I don't think anyone went to a high school where there was no bullying. It doesn't happen. But the idea of lessening it is possible. I think one of the ways is what we just talked about regarding the use of phones. I think that is a huge issue that can lead from school to after school. Obviously, not to take their phones away after school, but the idea that you have people that can attack another 24 hours a day if they want to, and they don't even have to look at them. They can do it from afar. I think that's a huge issue that hopefully locking phones up during school can partially take care of. When it comes to the changing demographic, I think they have to be able to feel like they're walking into a school that feels like they're a part of it, not that they're a foreigner in their own school. Once a child is in our district and they're going to our schools, they're our kids. So we have to make sure and we provide an environment where they feel like they're being seen.
Thank you. Anthony?
I think we, especially for the bullying part, as Jamo said, it does go on, I think, to some degree, but I would hope that no one in the district or the community is comfortable with that. And if that does come to the attention of the school or the board, we do try to step in and make sure that situation is taken care of. As far as the kids who are, feeling like the school isn't a good place for them or a good home for them or not comfortable, we have been expanding our curriculum to take into consideration more culturally responsive teaching, where they'll, have pictures and books that have a diverse group of people that are represented in them. So those are the kind of things that, we've been trying to do more often because the demographics are changing.
Caitlin?
There's an old saying, it says, it takes a village. It takes a village, it takes a community. And I think one of the things that I appreciated the most when my husband and I were doing an extensive search on where to settle down and eventually raise our children, one of the things that I fell in love with about Monroe-Woodbury is the sense of community, family values. I think when you move to a new place, you always want to figure out kind of what the atmosphere is and to make someone feel welcome. I think making sure that we build a level of tolerance for anyone who may have a different culture, a different background, understanding that the way that you behave at school is an extension of what you are taught at home, and when there is bad behavior, holding students accountable and letting folks know that, it's not going to be tolerated. But I think building that sense of community to make sure that all of the new students to the district feel welcome, and if there are unfortunate incidents that happen, making sure that there's a level of accountability so that other students know that it won't be tolerated, so they won't do it.
Candace?
So I'll kind of talk to making sure everyone is welcome and has the same opportunities and the same warmth as their peers. I really think that starts in the lower grades. I think we've made great strides as a district and just as an entire generation that's kind of coming up. My son, for example, has a stutter, and when I was growing up, that would have been something that other kids made fun of. And because it's been talked about and kind of showcased, and it's not an issue. So kind of bringing that in the lower grades, making sure that people who are coming in from different socioeconomic classes or different cultural, it's talked about and it's normalized at those lower levels can do a lot to make them feel welcome, and then that'll come up in the higher levels. As far as some of the other things, there's best practices, right? So there's districts that are out there that are probably more polarized economically than ours, and there's a lot of tension that kind of comes along with that. But that said, there's a lot of research and best practices that might be available that we can look to and then help to apply here.
Thank you.
Anthony, How will you advocate for and support students with special needs to ensure they receive the necessary resources and services to thrive academically and socially? For example, bringing satellite BOCES programs back to Monroe-Woodbury.
Yeah, that is something we have talked about on the board and looked into, is trying to get some of those services that currently are with BOCES brought back into the district. That takes, having to allocate the resources to make sure we have the equipment, to make sure we have the right teachers, to make sure we have the right teachers' assistants. But it is something that we monitor closely. We do try to keep on top of the population of kids that have special needs and make sure that money is spent to get the right equipment and to get the right teachers in our schools in order to accomplish that. Sometimes it's easier said than done. It does cost a little more money. Right now, the model going to BOCES is probably more economical in some ways for us, but there is a trade-off, I think, of not going, going outside the district, so to speak, and we continue to look at that as a potential option.
In terms of how I would advocate, I think one is being educated about what the needs are, and I think what programs and resources are out there that can be responsive or the most responsive to those needs, determining how best that we can allocate resources to bring those things here to Monroe-Woodbury or to take our students to them if they're not economically feasible to bring them into the community. So just in terms of answering the question on how I would advocate, I would become educated, understand what the needs are, and then do the research and with, of course, the fellow board members to determine what is the best path forward for the children in the district in terms of meeting their individual needs.
So similarly, I'm coming into this a little bit fresh, so it would be first kind of mapping the situation, understanding what the needs are, what we're doing today, and what other options might be available, and then finding a way to get into the budget at the right time, making sure that we hit the planning cycle and to hit that budget and account for those in the best way possible when we have that time.
So the good news here is I actually feel like we're in a good place when it comes to this already. Not saying we can't get better, but we're in our area, in our region, we're pretty well known for how well we treat these areas and these demographics. And I think that, we're in a good place to get even more. I think we should be applying for more grants because capital is a problem when we want to do more things. We fit everything we can into a budget, but we can't explode the budget past a certain level. So I think applying for grants would be a big help for us. In my mind, it's something that we should have already been putting more focus on when it comes to the grant perspective, but we would also, there's nothing that I feel like we aren't doing or aren't looking into already. And I know that might not be something that everyone's aware of, but there's a lot of conversations happening in the background regarding how can we benefit these children and make sure that they graduate on time and with a certain level of support when they do leave our walls.
This is the last question before your closing statement. Are you currently a member of the district SEPTA and/or at least one building level PTA? And if not, what has been the barrier? Besides partnering with PTAs, how do you plan to foster strong partnerships between schools, parents, and the broader community to support student success?
So I am a member of the PTA, North Main's PTA. I just believe that my motto as a parent is that I stay as involved in anything that has to do with my children as possible, because being involved, it helps you make good decisions for them. It helps you to stay involved about the issues so that you can be an advocate for changing them. And I think in terms of the fostering relationships, the PTAs, the SEPTAs, they're out in the community building those relationships, so they have them. I think there are voices and opinions and resources that are available, and I think just being there, being accessible, having that communication going both ways so that the community has a way to share their information with this PTAs and then to the board, and vice versa. So I think being a part of the community, being active on your PTA, I think all really bleeds into fostering that level of communication and the partnership between the schools, the PTA, and the community at large.
Thank you. Candace?
I'm not a member of any district SEPTA or PTA. I have been involved in some PTA events that Ashley and the North Main team have really done just an exceptional job. I have contributed when I had the time or the money, usually more money than time in the past. And that was my barrier, right? It was time. Prior, when my kids were small and when they were very small and before they were born, I did a lot of community outreach. I did that when I was a resident of Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh Public Schools. Before my oldest son was born, I started a Science Fridays program with Girl Scouts Heart of the Hudson, and then I got kind of really wrapped up in motherhood. I'm at a point now where my kids are a little bit older and need me a little bit less, and I now have that time to refocus on giving back to the community, and that's why I'm here today.
Jamel?
Not a member this year. In the past, I have been. My wife is a member this year. But we've talked in the past regarding where we can give time and attention to, and for me, it was the board. So we will go to events, and actually, I did think I was a member this year, and then I was told at Pine Tree that I was not, but that my wife was. That's how I found out. But so there's no specific barrier other than, I'd say, time.
Anthony?
Yeah, similar answer. Quite frankly, I don't know if I'm on, I know I've been in the past. I think I was in Central Valley last year. I know my wife has been many years. She was in, when we were in Smith Clove. Time is the issue. Unfortunately, being on the board and having a full-time job makes it difficult. But it is a great organization. We fully support it. Being on the board, when you're on the board, you do get a lot of interaction with the PTA. You get invited to a lot of events. You get to go experience them. And so, in that way, that's how I try to contribute and continue to foster the relationship.
Thank you. All right, so your closing statements, if we could start with Anthony. Is that okay?
Sure. So, as I said, this is the end of my third year on the board. I think, I've been involved in a lot of things in this school district. We've seen a lot of things. We went through a global pandemic. We went through a cyber attack. I've been in charge of 2 capital bond projects where we've gotten large projects passed and a lot of work done to our schools. We're presently involved in one of those right now. I think my experience in the business world with dealing with attorneys, dealing with contractors, dealing with design professionals, negotiating contracts, budgets, having a lot of access to data and understanding how to apply data to certain problems. I think all that is a really good resource for the board, and I think I've given those resources to the board, and I would hope that the community is lucky enough, that I'm lucky enough to have the community vote for me for another 3rd term, because I'd be proud to serve.
Thank you. Caitlin?
So I think in terms of my closing statement, one of the reasons that I was interested in pursuing this opportunity is because I really do care a lot about the community. I care a lot about what happens to my children. I care a lot about their education. I am an active member of this community. I'm on my school's PTA. I am a member of the board of the YMCA. I volunteer in terms of with young people on my daughter's track team, because I think being involved in your child's upbringing, it just helps to foster kind of them being more involved in what they want to do, seeing them grow, seeing them change. And I think, my professional career and all of the accolades and highlights that brings, I think I can bring some of that skill set to the board in order to, help with these policies, help to think about long-term strategic plans, how our community is changing, how we adapt to that long-term, where resources should go. Yes, we have kind of the big bucket checks in terms of safety and this thing and that thing, but I think we have to take a new, fresh approach sometimes, and sometimes a pair of fresh eyes to something that maybe was seemingly a barrier. I agree with Jamel. Maybe we look to getting some additional resources in terms of grants and other things. But I think based on my vested interest as a parent and an active member of the community, plus the very vast professional skills that I bring to the table, along with my networking capacity, I think I could be a very valuable member to the board, and I could be a very valuable conduit for the community to bring issues to the board so that we could hopefully fill all the gaps and resolve the challenges that we have year after year. So, thank you.
Candace?
12 years ago, my husband and I chose this area to settle down and have our children really because of this school district. It had an exemplary reputation, and I know a lot of my friends and peers in this community did the same thing. So a lot of people in this area, there's either the people who have lived here their whole lives or they're transplants who chose to live here because of this district. What they have in common is everybody loves this district and wants to see it succeed. I believe that my background, I've been in research and engineering for 15 years. I'm an engineer and a scientist at heart. I'm endearingly referred to as a super nerd in my family, and I love to share that. And I feel that this is one way where I can bring those skills in to do some good for the community. I also feel that a fresh and unique perspective can really help kind of maybe tackle some challenges that have not been successful in the past for one reason or another. That fresh perspective often is that final nudge that can bring a project to fruition. I also have a lot of experience from my research days and writing grants and getting those, so I would love to help do anything in that area. If there's money on the table, let's apply and see if we can get it. But in closing, I would love the opportunity to give back to the community in this way. I think I can add value to the board based on my skill set, and I'd be honored if you would vote for me on Tuesday.
Jamel?
So there's a few reasons why I would like to continue working for the board and for the school district. Once again, I'm a long-term resident. Even when I did leave, I came back because I was like, we had our first daughter, and the intention there was, where's the best school district for her to be in? I was a little biased, so it moved us back here. I purchased my family home, and I plan on staying. So I want this to be a community that I continue to be proud of. I think that when I was in school, it was a great community, a great school, and I know things have happened since then. Life has changed. The world has changed. School life has changed, to be honest. So I think that that's no excuse for us to not continue being as great as we've been in the past, and we can get back there. I try to give as much time and effort as I can to the school district. Last couple of years, I was fortunate enough to be able to provide a scholarship for our students. That was a huge win in my mind for me, because once again, I wanted to find ways to give back, and that was a way that I was able to. With my two daughters still in school for many more years here, the intention is that we keep growing, we keep getting better and better. And one of those ways, hopefully, is going to be through the hire of our next superintendent. And with that, I think that, I'm not going to speak for Anthony, but I believe that the people that are going to be on the board next year are going to be proud to be a part of that transition. We have to make sure this person comes in and learns about the district, learns about our culture, and learns about our issues, and gets to work. And a part of hiring is working with that person afterwards, and that's what I plan on doing.
Thank you so much. So I'd like to close this forum by thanking all of the candidates for their participation in our process. I would also like to thank the Monroe-Woodbury Middle School for hosting us this evening. To the voters, please remember to vote on Tuesday, May 21st at Central Valley Elementary. This concludes tonight's forum. Thank you.